What's going on, guys? I'm Zach from the Lumios Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we will be talking about what new Paradox Pokemon we could see in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's DLC. Now, we know that we're going to be getting new Paradox Pokemon in DLC because we've seen two of them in-game, in fact, in the little book, the Scarlet book or the Violet book, depending on the version. You can see a Paradox of the legendary beast from Johto, or in Violet, you can see the legendary Swords of Justice from Unova, a Paradox of them. So, it stands to reason that we could very likely see other Paradox Pokemon as well. And today we're going to talk about what ones I think we could see. So, first, I have a little theory for how we could potentially figure this out. So in Area 0, you can find the wild Paradox Pokemon, but you can also find some wild, just regular Pokemon, if you will. And the interesting thing about this is a lot of these Pokemon got some kind of upgrade, if you will, in these games. So like, for example, you can find wild Girafarig and Farigiraf there, because Girafarig got the evolution, Farigiraf, in this game. You can see Donphan there, because Donphan got two Paradox forms, Iron Treads and a Great Tusk. Then you see Volcarona. That got, of course, Iron Moth and Slitherwing, two Paradox forms. You can even find Dunsparce. That got Dunsparce. So, all of this just kind of makes me wonder if maybe, just maybe, we could see some kind of Pokemon Paradox for the other ones that we find in Area 0, or at least some of them. Probably not all of them, but some of them. So what would those be? Well, I'm going to rule out the Scarlet and Violet ones, the new Gen 9 Pokemon, like things like Flamigo and Garganacl and Houndstone. All of those can be found in Area 0, but I'm going to rule those out and just go with the older ones, because those are probably the hints. And the first one that stands out the most to me is Raichu. Now, Raichu is, it's Pikachu's evolution, and in case you don't know what Pikachu is, it's the mascot of the franchise, so it's kind of an obvious choice, if you will, for a Paradox Pokemon, right? I mean, it's either this or Charizard, it seems, judging by past things, yeah? So I could totally see this. I could totally see a specifically past Paradox of Raichu, and I think it would be really, really cool if it was actually Gorochu. Gorochu is a scrapped evolution to Raichu, where it was supposed to be like really, really powerful, and Pikachu was going to be the baby of a 3-stage. Now obviously this got cut, and Pikachu was initially a 2-stage, and then they added in Pichu, a pre-evolution to Pikachu and Johto. Well, this would bring back Gorochu, but as a Paradox of Raichu, and I think that would be so freaking cool. I also don't think that this is too crazy, because there's actually some evidence that Sandy Shocks is based off of Beta Magneton's design. Obviously, this isn't a full recreation of Beta Magneton, and likewise, I don't think this Paradox of Raichu would be a full recreation of Gorochu, but I imagine it would pull some concepts from it, and I think it would be so cool to kind of finally have our Gorochu, and I think it would be really cool to make it like Electric Dragon, something wild, make it like a really scaly Raichu, and just, I mean, man, I'd love that. I think that would be so cool. And here's a little challenge for you all in the comments below. Try to name these Paradox Pokemon based off of this stuff. So, an Electric Dragon, Gorochu, Paradox of Raichu, where it perhaps even holds its tail and uses it as kind of a weapon, like a hammer almost, very similar to how G-Max Pikachu does in the anime. I think that would be a really neat detail about it. And again, it would be very scaly too, unlike the Raichu we have now. And I imagine, of course, it would have fangs to give it a more primal look. So name that one as well as the other ones. And on that note, let's move to the other ones. Now, in Area 0, you can also find Zweilous. And Zweilous, while it didn't get a Paradox, its line did, with Hydreigon getting a future Paradox in Pokemon Violet called Iron Jugulus. And now, I think this is a little unfair. Pokemon Violet got two Paradoxes of Pseudo-Legendary, which are very popular Pokemon, that being Iron Thorns, a Paradox of Tyranitar, and Iron Jugulus, a Paradox of Hydreigon. Whereas Scarlet only got the one Paradox of a Pseudo, being Roaring Moon, a paradox of Salamence. So I think it would be really, really neat if Scarlet got one more paradox of a pseudo, and I think that one that I've seen a lot of in Area Zero, so it would make sense, would have to be Garchomp. I think it would be super, super cool to see like an ancient primal Garchomp that maybe even swam in the waters and stuff, so it was not a land shark yet, it was a shark. I think that would be super cool. I could totally see it being, because the trend with these paradoxes is that they keep one of their original typings and then they replace the other typing with something else. And so in Garchomp's case, I think it would keep the dragon typing because it's not a land shark anymore, so you're removing the ground typing, and it would be a water type, a water and dragon type, which is a very, very competitive, very powerful typing. I would absolutely love this. I could see, just like how Garchomp's like faster than a jet in the skies, this would be like one of the fastest, Pokemon in the past, with it kind of being like an apex predator in the ocean. I think that would be so, so cool. So of course, give me your name for this one as well. Now, to talk about a future one that I would really like to see is Go-Goat. You can find Go-Goat in Area Zero. That's kind of how all of these are based off of, is mons you can find Area Zero. And I think it would be so cool to see a like metallic Go-Goat. I could see it being like, the whole idea behind it is it can just ram through anything, right? And this would obviously keep its grass typing, but then for its secondary typing, I could see it being like an electric type, where it's grass electric and it has to kind of charge up and then just bolts right through things. Maybe even its dex entry can talk about how it can just actually go through like any substance by ramming through it. I think that would be super cool. I'm sure that my good friend Dusty Go-Goat would love to see this happen for Go-Goat. We were actually having a call at the day of recording this where he was talking about how he wished that the Pokemon Company would give Go-Goat some love. And I think this would be a great way to do it, and I think that would be so cool. Obviously, this name would be Iron something, but let me know what you think it would be in the comments below. Now, one thing I noticed about Area Zero that I thought was very, very interesting was that there are a lot of moth Pokemon. So you have Volcarona, you have Frosmoth, you have Venomoth, and then, while not a moth per se, it's kind of a similar body type, if you will, you also have Masquerain. And now, they've done Slitherwing and they've done Iron Moth, so I actually doubt that Venomoth or Frosmoth would get any kind of love here. And I do doubt that Masquerain could get any love, but I will say I could totally see a Surskit paradox. And I know on paper that sounds awful, but just hear me out. I can imagine it being like a little spider droid. You know, I think about like the ones on Star Wars that takes apart the jets. I'm blanking on the names right now, but those droids are really, really cool, or even the ones with the force fields. It's been so long since I've watched the prequels, so I'm going to butcher their names if I attempt it, so I'm not even going to try. But I think that would be really cool to get like a little spider droid Surskit. I mean, that would be so, so cool. I think that the perfect typing for this thing would be for Surskit to keep its water typing, and then maybe even pick up the steel typing. And again, I could totally see this being a thing of like, it crawls into rooms and then it can explode or something. So it's very similar to like Electrode in that sense. It would obviously get explosion, but I think that would be so, so cool. And I loved that Screamtail and Fluttermane especially took these kind of not competitive Pokemon, and they didn't really change their designs too much, but made them so freaking competitive. I mean, Fluttermane is genuinely a terrifying Pokemon to face in competitive. So I think it would be so funny if they did that with Surskit of all things. That'd just be gold. I'd absolutely love that. Now, for the last Pokemon, I wanted it to be more like Donphan or Volcarona or Cyclizar, where it got two paradoxes, right? A past one and a future one. And this Pokemon, I actually got the idea from my wife, Sarah, and that is Corviknight. So first, let's focus on the past form. I could see this thing being a dark flying type. It doesn't have the metal on it, so it's more like a true crow, and perhaps it's even a lot faster than Corviknight, rather than, more bulky like Corviknight is. I think that would be really, really neat. Again, it keeps Corviknight's flying type and just replaces the steel with dark. Or I could even see them replacing it with fighting if they kind of wanted to differentiate it from Honchkrow a little bit, or even Ghost. Either way, I think that would be really, really cool. I could totally just see this being a Corviknight just without the armor. I think that's such a simple idea, but also so cool. I love that. Now, for the future version of Corviknight, I say we lean into the metal, right? We go full into it, and it's covered in metal. It's completely iron, like all of the other Violet Paradoxes. And so this time, it would keep its steel type, but would also pick up an additional type. And for this, I could also see it, again, being dark or being ghost, but I could also see it being electric as well, just because that would work really well with it, I think. It's very easy to give a robot an electric typing, though, so maybe that's the cheap way out, if you will. But yeah, I think that would be great for it, and I could see this future Corviknight kind of being able to control little feathers of it as like little drones it can send out, which you may recognize is a feature of Gigantamax Corviknight, and that's totally intentional. I want it to kind of resemble Gigantamax Corviknight in the same way that Roaring Moon and Iron Valiant resemble Mega Gardevoir and Gallade and Mega Salamence, respectively. So, again, be sure to let me know in the comments below what your names for these Paradox I've described are. Be sure to also let me know your own Paradox ideas in the comments below. Honestly, I wasn't super crazy about Paradox Pokemon, but now that I've seen them in game, I wasn't when they were leaked, but now that I've seen them in game, I adore them, and I want more. I want a lot more of them. So yeah, be sure to let me know all that in the comments below. Also, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss our future speculation on Pokemon we could see in DLC, as well as just our content on Paradoxes, on Scarlet and Violet, all that fun stuff. Until next time, I will see all of you later.